Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, so we hear a lot about all these high-tech, billion-dollar solutions to climate problems, right? But what if I told you the most powerful cooling technology is literally growing right outside our windows? We're talking about trees. They actually have this astonishing ability to cut city heat by up to 50%. But, we can't just toss a few saplings in the dirt and call it a day. There's a pretty massive catch to all this. Let's kick things off with Section 1, Surviving the Concrete Jungle. We really need to talk about the brutal reality of those scorching summer days. I mean, just imagine walking down a city sidewalk in the dead of July. You know the exact feeling. The asphalt is practically radiating heat right back up through your shoes. And all those glass and steel buildings, they're trapping the stagnant air so it feels like you're walking through a giant oven. It's totally draining, not to mention dangerous. But hold on to that super uncomfortable feeling for a second and just ask yourself, what if that exact same street could be dramatically cooler? And we didn't even have to tear down the whole city to do it. Well, the scale of the solution here is just staggering, 50%. By strategically integrating trees into the urban landscape, we can actually make our cities feel up to 50% cooler. To put that into perspective, we are not talking about some negligible 1-degree difference where you barely notice it. We're talking about literally cutting perceived heat in half. It completely changes the livability of an urban space during a heat wave. But that begs the question, how does a plant pull off something that normally requires gigawatts of electricity for air conditioners?
That brings us to Section 2, Nature's Air Conditioning and exactly how trees beat the heat.
So, trees tackle urban heat in two main ways. First up, the obvious one, they provide a physical canopy of much-needed shade. They block that intense solar radiation from turning asphalt into a massive heat radiator. If the ground doesn't absorb the heat in the first place, it can't radiate it back at you. Simple enough, right? But the second mechanism is the real secret weapon. Trees actually cool the air through this incredible natural biological process. And when you combine that with the shade, they make our cities fundamentally healthier and way more comfortable. That biological process is called evapotranspiration. Basically, trees draw water up from the soil through their roots, and they release it as water vapor through these tiny pores in their leaves. They're essentially sweating. And just like how human sweat pulls heat off our skin to cool us down, this evaporating water vapor pulls thermal energy right out of the surrounding air, dropping the ambient temperature. It's honestly a brilliant zero-emission air conditioning system, and the whole shebang runs entirely on just sunlight and water. But moving on to Section 3, let's look at the urban forestry catch and why not all trees cool equally. Because here is that catch I mentioned earlier. Not every tree gives you the same cooling effect. We cannot simply plant any random tree in any random spot, check a box on a city planning form, and expect to get that maximum temperature drop. Treating trees like they're just identical pieces of street furniture, that completely ignores the complex biology and the environmental dynamics that are actually at play here. If we really want to harness that 50% cooling power, city planners have to calculate a whole matrix of factors. First off, the species. Different leaf sizes and canopy shapes yield vastly different rates of evapotranspiration. Second, exactly where it's planted. Is it blocking the afternoon sun, or is it just shading a random brick wall where it doesn't really matter? Third, the surrounding buildings and architecture. Are you planting it in a narrow, windy alleyway between skyscrapers, or a wide, open plaza? And finally, how well the urban green spaces are planned overall. That dictates whether these trees work together as a massive cooling network or if they're just kind of sitting there in isolation. So it really comes down to random planting versus smart planning. Throwing seeds in the ground with a haphazard, random approach might make a city look a bit greener, maybe look nice on a postcard, but it really doesn't do much for the actual temperature. Smart planning, on the flip side, is targeted. It's scientific. It means planting the exact right trees in the exact right places for maximum heat reduction. We have to start treating trees not just as pretty decorations, but as highly engineered public infrastructure. And that leads perfectly into our final section. Section 4, Building Cooler, Resilient Cities by Deploying Nature's Infrastructure Against Climate Change. We really can't talk about urban heat without addressing the elephant in the room. Climate change is driving more extreme heat waves globally. These aren't just your standard uncomfortable summer days anymore. They're prolonged, intense events that are severely straining our power grids, our infrastructure, and honestly, our own bodies. Finding effective ways to protect dense urban populations isn't just a nice-to-have, it's absolutely urgent. We need solutions that can scale, and we need them right now. And this is exactly why experts are saying that smart urban forestry could become one of the most effective and affordable ways to protect people from dangerous temperatures. By moving beyond mere decoration, urban forestry becomes this incredibly powerful defensive strategy for public health. I mean, when you compare it to the absolutely staggering cost of upgrading power grids or retrofitting millions of buildings, planting and maintaining the right tree canopy is insanely cost-effective. Ultimately, the true goal of smart urban forestry is so much more than a beautification project. We have to go beyond just making cities greener. The objective here is to build actively healthier communities where people aren't literally trapped indoors all summer long. We want to create environments that are measurably cooler, driven by the hard data of shade and evapotranspiration. At the end of the day, planting the right trees in the right places is all about fostering deeply resilient cities that can actually withstand the climate challenges we're going to face in the future. Because really, nature already gave us the perfect technology to combat the urban heat crisis. The shade, the biological cooling, that massive reduction in heat, the tools are sitting right there in the soil, and the blueprint for smart planning is totally available to us. So, the only question that remains is, will we prioritize nature's infrastructure before our concrete jungles become completely unlivable? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and next time you're out walking on a sweltering day, I hope you never look at a city tree the exact same way again.